So today we are looking at one of the cutest and most hoppitiest, if that's a word, animal that we have in this world, and that is the bunny rabbit. Here you can see I have a diagram of a skeletal structure. It specifically says up there in the top, I didn't draw this is just drawn by the artist mentioned in the bottom right there, but that this is a jackrabbit. They're looking into the bunnies and stuff. There's over something 40 species of bunnies, like different types of bunnies. So I just kind of want to say, like this is the generic bone structure that we're going to be thinking about and looking at while we're drawing our bunnies. But again, remember, not every bunny is going to look exactly like this, but again, the bone structure is going to be pretty much identical, just a little bit larger or a little bit smaller. So when we look at bunnies, jackrabbits are a little bit leaner. They live in warmer areas. So you can see that in this diagram, it looks like the bone is pushing against the skin in some areas. So you might be able to see some more bunny landmarks. But for the most part, a lot of bunnies, especially bunny rabbits that live in colder locations or climates, they're really dense with fur and loose skin and stuff like that, and so they end up just looking really fluffy and squishy. And so a lot of stuff like bone structure and underneath structure, anatomy, doesn't show. So it's good to know, especially if you're trying to build a bunny rabbit from your imagination onto your sketchbook. But just remember, when we look at images later, you might not see some of this stuff. That being said, what we do want to notice is a couple things. We have a nice, pretty big rib cage here. It's going about halfway through their body. You can see that we have 4 floating ribs here. Okay, that's what we call it when the rib is not attached to a bone structure. It's called a floating rib. As humans, we have 2. But again, this is something that is going to give to the bunnies ability to kind of absorb shock when they jump and hit the ground and when they're running at such fast speeds. Another thing you might notice is the similar to almost like a hand structure on their arms there, and they do have a little more of a upper body kind of hand grip. It doesn't look exactly like a hand, of course. They do have essentially what is a paw, but it kind of gives them the ability to grab things a little more efficiently than some animals like a cat or something like that, for that example. But primarily their power source comes from these nice, really big back legs. And you can see even just in the bone density alone, those back legs are just more dominant than the front side of their body. Last thing we'll look at is we'll take a look at the skull here. And so really nothing too interesting about the skull. We do have a little more of a boxy shape. So in the pictures, we'll be drawing circles and simple shapes like that. But when we come back in and refine our sketch, knowing this kind of helps to know that we're going to have a little more of a squared off edge there, because the head of any kind of animal is where you're going to see most of that bone structure showing through. And then also this nice big eye socket, right? And what this relates to is because rabbits are prey, so their eyes are on the side of their head. If you guys have a dog or a cat at home, you can look at them and your cat and dog have eyes in the front of their head and they look forward just like we do. Animals that are noted as prey have eyes on the side of their head, like rabbits and deer, animals like that, the ones that are just vegetarians usually. And this is so that they have a full peripheral of their view, so that it's harder for another animal to sneak up on them. And last thing to note is the fact that we have their molars right here, and you can see there's this huge gap of space where they don't have teeth. That's not inaccurate. This drawing isn't wrong. Most animals that graze on grains and grass and stuff like that, they have their chompers back here, and that's kind of what helps them to really break down and grind those kind of more fibrous kind of grains into something that they can swallow and it's palatable. And just another quick view at a different anatomy chart of a different species of bunny, I believe. We have a little more of a bent down shape here. This is really good though to note because it shows us what's happening with the foot, even when realistically that belly fluff is going to be going over the foot when we're looking at the picture. So it's kind of good to note that this back side of the leg completely lays flat, connecting into the pelvic there. And then also to note how flexible and round that spine can get. So if we take a quick look at the anatomy and layer some muscles on top, this is the image we get. Again, On a jackrabbit, you'd probably see more of this because it's a leaner kind of a rabbit, but in other bunnies, we're not going to see so much of this muscle structure, unfortunately. But you can start to see things where we get this nice squared off nose that is really prominent in the facial features of a rabbit. We get this, you can see this more arching roundness of the lower back there. And then of course, you know, the dominating factor of the bunny, which is these really thick, muscular back hind legs into like their glutes area, right? So, you know, this is just kind of some things that we want to remember. A lot of times you don't see these structures on bunnies, but we do want to remember that if an animal is going to be hopping, you know, over half its size, we have to have some sort of a power horse back there, right? So sometimes it helps to know that when you're drawing these creatures, you're going to have an extra bump. Whether they're laying down, they're jumping, they're hiding, whatever it is, there's going to be an extra bump, not just their belly, to indicate where their leg is. Alright, so we're going to kick this off with Intro Bunny here. So I thought it'd be pretty easy to just kind of start with something that's a little more focused on the head. So here's my breakdown. If you guys followed in my animal videos previously, you know that I have the breakdown, the cheat sheet, where I draw the shapes that we're going to draw on top, and then we go ahead and take our chance. So Intro Bunny is off to the side there, and now we're going to take our turn. The way most of these bunnies' heads break down is similar to how it's breaking down here, where you have one circle for the overall like main head shape, and then another circle or oval for the cheeks. The way this one started off is essentially if you were imagining drawing sandy cheeks from SpongeBob. So if you guys watch SpongeBob, start with Sandy Cheeks' head, and then we're just going to move on to the body, and I promise it'll turn into a bunny though. So always be thinking those simple shapes. I mean, you can also compare this to Bugs Bunny, right, where he had that nice kind of hill shape of a head and then big oval cheeks. A lot of the bunnies actually follow that, and you know, there's no wonder why they drew Bugs Bunny that way. Came out really successful. So here I'm just trying to find the eyes. Bunny eyes, guys, you can really exaggerate and go huge, I've found. So I drew them kind of small here. I make them a little bit bigger at the end, but don't be scared to go nice and big with them. They really do have nice big eyes. So for the most part with the nose, you do see kind of like a really stretched out fat kind of triangle or trapezoidus shape in there. Sometimes you don't really see the top of it because it kind of bends with the face. So I always kind of see it too as like a V shape, a really, really wide V shape. And then remember when we looked at that skull, we want to come in and give ourselves a little more of harder edges for that skull shape. Remember, it wasn't so round, even though they look super fluffy and you want to pinch those cheeks. Underneath them, they do still have that skull shape, right? And that skull shape was nice and angled. So we just want to make sure we're getting that into our picture where we can. This one's not too much about the body, but we really don't have any information with the body. I can't see any of the legs or anything like that. So the body is just half an oval shape, whatever you want to call that in there. We can throw detail into the ear. So we have one ear blicked right towards us, right? It's listening in our direction. The other is listening behind it, maybe for predators or something. So kind of cool. Bunnies do have that ability to kind of independently control their ears. So that's one way you can play with their character. All right, now it's cleanup time. So if you can, erase those beginning lines that you started with. Erase the simple shapes that you don't need anymore. And then you can grab a darker pencil, or if you drew nice and light, you can just draw right on top of that too. So here's where I wanted to fix my eyes to be even bigger. And of course, you know, cuteness, big eyes, they go hand in hand. You gotta have the big eyes on an animal that you're trying to make look really fluffy and cute. Alright, if you've seen any of my animal videos of the past, you do know my cute eye secret too, where just draw a nice big dark eye throw in some highlight shapes on there, and you are good to go. Cuteness achieved. Okay, for the most part, I think this is looking done. I'm just going to add a few finishing touches here, maybe add a little bit of fur texture, and then we're going to move on to our next bunny. Including this guy, we have 5 bunnies to get through today, guys. So let's do this. So this guy is a little more like Jackrabbit looking, like the anatomy picture that we looked at in the beginning. So you can really see the emphasis on that, not box shape, but very kind of hard angled skull that he has in this head. He's a bit of a leaner bunny shape, so we get to kind of play with that. We get to see a little bit of his anatomy. The way we're going to break this down is we're essentially going to be drawing a snowman here, is what it's going to start out like, and then we're going to transform it into a fat cat, and then we're going to transform it into a bunny. It's just the way it turns out, but again, same principles. Circle for the main part of the head, a smaller circle for the snout area where the nose and the mouth are, and then big circular oval shape for the chest. And then we just want to draw that the stomach shape as a separate, the stomach to back shape as a separate circle, because we want to remember that the chest is overlapping and is in front of the back, right? So it just kind of helps us to imagine that and put it into space without having to think about it too much. So here's where I was talking about fat cat shape, right? I could, someone could easily turn this into a fat cat if they wanted to, but we're going to turn it into a bunny. I promise it's going to get there. So remember, when you're drawing legs too, the legs always start thicker, and then as they get towards the foot, this is on any animal, including humans too, as it gets to the foot, it tapers in, it gets thinner, right? Less muscular structure there, more tendons, more reflexes, so that's why everything kind of tapers down to the toes there. Alright, now that we got our basic shape structure in here, we can go in and start to turn this thing into a bunny and maybe less of a fat cat. So the main reason that I like to think of that snout area as a circle is because they just have such puffy cheeks, right? It's like, if you've ever seen a bunny when they're sniffing, that whole area is just kind of like flexing and like really round and bulbous. So the reason that I like to throw that circle in there is so I don't forget the roundness of it, how soft it is of an area. But again, if you guys see a different shape, you're more than welcome to draw that in. I definitely see like a rounded rectangle in there as well. But for me, a circle worked. A circle helped me keep it round and cute and fluffy. So carving into my simple shapes here, just kind of remembering that the chest leads into the arms. That the chest and arms are overlapping the back shape, so I do want to have a line that indicates that, where it's going down and hard edged, and then I draw the little bit of the back I see there on the right side, and then I'm coming in and drawing the back on the left side here. And again, because rabbits have like a loose skin, a nice fluffy coat on them, we don't see too much of that bone structure, so a lot of things just kind of look like bumps on them. But you can make more educated decisions about where you put those bumps when you can think about the anatomy in your head. Alright, so we're going to give this guy a little concerned look. Kind of looks like he just did something, or he just stole another bunny's carrot. He's on the lookout. So again, you really want to emphasize those eyes. A lot of times when bunnies are looking a specific direction, you're not going to see those other eyes on the other side of their head, because again, they're a prey, right? So they have eyes on the sides of their head. So even the slightest angle will hide that other eye from us. All right, we're gonna go in and play up these ears. You really can't over exaggerate the ears on a rabbit too much. And we'll tighten up our sketch a little bit. I'm just kind of making up paw feet here, even though it's in the grass, just to be a little more realistic, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, now we have the cutie begging us for some carrots here. What I wanted to show you guys with this one again, if you've seen my videos from the past, so I feel like I keep saying that like I'm a broken record, but my trick to get the size and proportions right is always to go for the head size. This is something I learned in life drawing when I drew people, and it's something that translates to pretty much anything you draw for me. So if you guys don't want to use it, don't use it, but this helps me keep my proportions in check. So you can see here, I found that this bunny was about 3.5 heads tall, and that's not counting his feet. So I know that his feet are just a little bit lower. So I can use this structure no matter how big or small I want to make the bunny. I just make my first circle, and then I go 3.5 of that first circle down, and that's about how tall my bunny will be, give or take, and I can always exaggerate a little bigger or smaller. Again, this is just kind of my way of doing this, and it really helps me solidify where everything is on the bunny without having to overthink it. I don't like to get too far in the drawing and then my bunny's lopsided or too big on the bottom and really it's tiny on top or something like that. So I always give myself these checkpoints. So with this one, we didn't have the 2 circle kind of snowman body here. The way his body, or the way he's standing on his back feet, created a nice square shape down there, so I thought we'd just kind of stick with it. Maybe like you can consider it the bottom half of a marshmallow because they're very fluffy. And then he just had these cute little arms sticking out. Again, that fluff level is so thick that we don't really see much of that arm except for the front part. Remember, there is that zigzag bone structure going on in there if you do want to do something with that. Alright, so we have our marshmallow bunny here with its little limbs. And again, just sticking with my simple shapes, nice light lines. And now we can go in and actually turn this thing into a real bunny and not just a marshmallow. So gonna go in, let's make this hard edged up here. And then catch some of that cheek fluff that's pouring over the side. And main focus, I really want to capture that kind of like looking up, right? Like we can really see its mouth. It's really cute. So I want to make sure I capture that effect in there. And so simply you're going to do this just by not drawing the mouth so low and making sure you see like that nice big kind of frownish look. But don't overemphasize it. Don't make that line too big or it won't really look right. Like you don't want to go too long with that line. Especially with this one, the white fur kind of blends into the chin. So emphasizing the fact that its cheeks are just kind of pouring over its body. Its chest does stick out a good amount here. So you do want to show that the chest is sticking out further than the face. And we have these little paws in here. And then it's just kind of figuring out, thinking about that skeleton and thinking about that anatomy. Where do things sit, right? So I can't really see it, but in my head I can kind of get a picture of what's going on underneath those layers, right? I'm putting on my artist x-ray vision, and we're just looking through this rabbit, kind of placing things where it looks about right. So again, I can't see these feet, but we're gonna make them up. I kind of know what rabbit feet look like, right? So I just kind of throw them in there, give them little paw shapes, and then a nice big eye. The cuter you make this eye, the more successful this bunny will be getting its snacks. Take that challenge seriously. Alright, we'll just throw in a few more textures here, get the shape of that ear, and we're going to move on to our next fluffy creature. So we got Mrs. Droopy Ear right here, and the toughest part about her was that she just blended in with herself, right? She is just a stark white bunny with a little bit of brown on her face, which helped. But other than that, her chin just blends into her chest. Her chest just blends into her arms. So this is where knowing that anatomy really helped. And also looking at the previous bunnies and how I broke them down really helped too. Just for me personally, and hopefully for you guys as well, to kind of find that structure. I was just kind of thinking, where do shapes overlap? So two circles for the head, and a circle for the body, and I'm thinking a nice big oval for the back side there, or you can just kind of draw in an extension on the circle that you do for the chest. So I just kind of wanted to remind myself where things are overlapping. And then a nice indication of the feet just by drawing in some kind of simple circle shapes here. Again, this isn't the stage where you want to really commit to anything. This is where you want to see what you want to commit to, right? So just kind of slap in some lines, be sketchy. Sketchy and loose will get you a nice drawing with some good energy to it. Alright, so now that we got the simple shapes of Miss Droopy Ear in here, we're going to take this further and grab us some realistic detail here. This is one of the cases where it is turning only slightly to the side, and we can see a little bit of that eye, but you can see that it's already disappearing with just that slight turn of the head. So just another indication of how quickly that eye disappears, and we only see one eye on the side of the head. I really wanted to play up those cheeks here because you can see them just drooping. She got droopy ears, she got droopy cheeks. She's got it all. So one way to play up fluffy softness is to keep all your shapes nice and round. Try not to use too many hard edges. Of course, hard edges do exist on some things. But do your best to just kind of keep it as round, curved, draw on some fur fluff if you want. All of that will just kind of help to emphasize the squishiness. Alright, so drawing a bit of what I can see of the paws. Again, the fur is literally just so crazy on this bunny that I can't even really see much other than just the little brown spots. So that was kind of just helping me figure it out. Remember, overlapping shapes, so I want to know where that front half is before I find that back half, even though we can't see it with the blending fur. Some indication of that little footsie. And then this other foot that's kind of like sliding out on the floor there. Alright, let's get in Miss Floppy Ear's big cute eyes. Remember, if they're not cute enough, she's not going to get those snacks. It's your responsibility. And then we'll jump to the next drawing. Before you judge this guy, okay, he looks this way because it's cold. Don't judge him. This is quite the chunky rabbit. I loved it. She's just literally round, round, round. So play with those round shapes here, guys. Do not be afraid to draw as circular as you can with this guy. I mean, he has cheeks on cheeks, he has chins on chins. It was fun to draw this guy for sure. So playing with that structure at first, you know, sandy cheeks from SpongeBob to start off your head. We can see that front chest cavity is clearly in front of that big backside of this guy. So you want to draw that in. I'm always looking to where lines connect. So if you look over at my cheat sheet and what I'm drawing right now, you can see that right where the top of his head is literally where the backside of his body is disappearing. So instantly right there, that just kind of tells me this is where to draw it, right? It's, you know, it's the connect the dot kind of format that I like to look for. Now this guy's feet are pretty much buried, so I'm not gonna fake them or emphasize them in here. Again, I just kind of want to draw the environment. So we did this when we drew bandicoots, where if their limbs are hidden and you're not going to draw them, give me a reason why you're not drawing them. Okay, so draw something in front of them. It can be snow. An easy thing that you can replace it with is, of course, a pillow, a blanket. You know, any of these things can be your artistic way to hide the feet. But try to think of a good way to hide the feet. Don't just draw an armless or a handless bunny, because that might be a little scary. It'd be much cuter if you drew them on a little jeweled pillow. So I really wanted to play up this guy's features here. His really big mouth, his really big cheeks. All of that stuff. So I kind of went in and exaggerated it a bit. So I wanted to show how thick his mouth was coming down. You know, that nice little nose. The smaller you draw the features sometimes too, if you're gonna try to make someone look, let's say puffy in the face, for example, the smaller you draw the features in comparison to how big you draw the face will always make something look that much puffier, if that makes sense. So play around with that. How small can you make the features and how big can you make the face to really exaggerate how big someone is, right? Or how puffed up their face is. So we see a little more of this eye on the right. So you can draw that in a little bigger, a little clearer. And then you can see a little bit of that subtlety of where that back leg is. Remember we were talking in the beginning, we said there's always going to be a lump in there. We know it's there because we know there's a muscle structure, right? Alright guys, this is pretty much it for this video. As always, I just want to say thank you for watching. I'm just going to finish up real quick a little bit of the background here. Give my audience, which is you, a reason why I'm not drawing his cute little bunny feet. If you guys have suggestions for videos in the future, please let me know in the comments below and I will get to it. I do have one more suggestion from a viewer for next week. So next week, we are going to be drawing trash pandas. Have a good day, guys.